video store is open. This is another episode of Top Shelf Video. This is a very special episode because we have our friends and employees back from Flickers from the Cave with us. But I think one of the benefits of owning a video store is every now and then you get your celebrity types or your folks that kind of pass through the video store. And we just we're lucky enough to have Jill. Jill, and I apologize if I say your last name incorrectly. I know I've listened to plenty of podcasts where people tried to pronounce your last name. Gevargizian.
Can I try?
No?
Gevargizian. Oh, I'm sorry.
Okay.
Oh, I was gonna try because I had listened to you interviewed, and I was like, "Oh, I'm gonna try that." I'm not gonna screw it up.
Yeah, I'm gonna use my sickness as an excuse, but Jill is joining us today. She's passing to the video store, but yeah, we have Jill with us. Jill is the director of one of our favorite films in a movie that we talked about on Flickers from the Cave, and that we'll probably be covering on Top Shelf Video as well too. The Stylist, and has a movie out currently on streaming called A Ghost Game. But yeah, I guess we can introduce Jill. How are you, Jill?
Good. How are you? Thanks for having me on.
Yeah, we're good. And today we have everybody with us. It's myself, Eli, I'm one of the owners of Top Shelf Video, with my brother.
Jaime.
And our friends from Flickers from the Cave.
Marty.
I'm Mike.
Hello, I'm Julie. We're Friday Night Hires.
Yeah.
Yes, we are.
So yeah,
waiting for a key.
Sorry,
you weren't allowed one.
Yeah, we'll get you the employee stuff here pretty soon. Still doing
Just
background
because
checks.
I talked about explosives, you won't give me.
Look,
Yeah.
we need to wait for the background check to come back clean.
Yeah,
and
background
it
check.
hasn't. So.
Yeah.
Well, if that's what you're waiting for, I'm never getting a key.
Look, we ran a credit check on you. You might not ever get a key.
Oh, if it's credit check, I'm damn sure not getting it.
Well, yeah. So, wanted to have Jill on. Jill, I've been following some of your work for some time now, as far back as I remember watching your first short at Texas Frightmare. It was, oh man, it's early in the morning. The Call Girl, yeah. And I remember seeing that and being like, wow, this is really cool. Like, I like this idea and this premise. And I remember coming up to you at Frightmare and asking, like tons of questions because I was very inspired by the work that you did there. And I, at the time, was wanting to do short films and things myself. So I had like a ton of questions and I was kind of like fanning out, meeting somebody who I could actually talk to about it. But do you want to like maybe tell us a little bit about like how you got into directing and sort of how you kind of got into like the art of like film and everything. Well, not everything. You don't take us that far back, but I guess as much as you'd like to share with us.
Starting with my day one when I was born. I've always loved movies, and that just grew and grew through my childhood to high school, but I never thought of it as something I could do at all until I was also a super horror fan, but I loved all movies. And then I finally went to actually Frightmare in 2012. And that's where I met some filmmakers. The first time I think I had in my life ever had seen a film and met the actual filmmaker, and they were like real people, Well, I never met maybe a famous filmmaker either, but I think before that moment, I thought it was something that was just not even something anyone would consider unless you were like a millionaire or connected to Hollywood already. So through that, I started a screening series in Kansas City called Slaughter Movie House. And the more and more filmmakers I met, I just kind of like wanted to be on sets and wanted to be involved. And then my friend Eric Havens wrote Call Girl, and I asked if I could direct it, having no idea what that even meant. No, I didn't go to film school. I don't know anything. And I was always doing creative things like photography. I grew up dancing, playing multiple instruments. I do hair. So there's like all different things. I was in performing arts stuff in school, but I never loved being on stage. I think I didn't realize then I wanted to be the people like behind the crew making the movie or the live performance. So yeah, it was just I jumped in with Call Girl, having no idea what that even really was going to be, and it kind of just it became like an obsession right away. I was like, this is like everything. You get to work in all the different art forms, from photography to music to fashion to performance. It's like it encompasses almost every type of art, and I was like addicted ever since. But I still feel like I'm figuring it out with every movie. It's a new challenge.
It's amazing.
That's awesome. Is that short available online that we can look back and check it out?
Yeah, I have it on my YouTube, but it's also on Alter's YouTube. They're a short horror channel on YouTube, and they've got actually like 4 of my shorts, and they have such a great audience. Like the Stylist on Alter has like a couple million views. Mine has like maybe 1,000. I don't know. But they're great. But then actually something really cool that, well, I guess it's out there, but I haven't like officially said it. It's going to be a special feature on the Ghost Game Blu-ray, which is exciting to have it on something physical. To just kind of be a real thing outside of the internet.
Absolutely.
We put that, I decided to put that one and another one called 42 Counts on Ghost Game, just because they share themes of spying on people through the internet and such. Yes. So I felt like it made sense.
Damn.
That's awesome.
Yeah, we're getting some exclusive news. Cool.
That's awesome. Well, breaking news, if I can get this out next week. But I was curious because and I know you've done a couple, like you've done music videos and other things as well, right? Or I'm trying to remember kind of like some of the other work that you have done, because I know it seems like those are some of the things that you've done to keep your skills sharp, I guess, when you're not directing a full feature. But have you done like other commercial work or any other things outside of that you could speak to?
Nothing commercial. I have done a few videos. I actually haven't done a short since before the Stylist feature, so I haven't done anything between. I'd love to do a short again, actually, to do it just for fun and not have all the stress of a feature. It just becomes a business, and it takes a lot of the fun out of making a film away. So yeah, but I haven't made a music video in so long. I'd love to do that again too, but it's such a struggle of no one having anything to make anything with. It's like, any local artists understandably don't have the budget to actually finance a music video. Everyone wants to make a music video for like $500.
Right.
Well, that'll pay for one person to maybe shoot it. Well, what about everything else? If it's one day. So I want to do so much more stuff, but even like I'm saying, I want to make a short, but I immediately get discouraged realizing I still have to find a decent chunk of money, and a short definitely won't make it back. So so it's like, this industry is so challenging in that way. It's like the money runs out, and then how do you keep making stuff?
Is it, I have a million questions. Is it like when you were making shorts, how kind of do you go about financing that? Or is it like, I mean, I'm mystified by the whole thing. I understand it's not going to be a for-profit venture, but it's a proof of concept so that someday you get to make something as amazing as the Stylist.
Well, most of them I guess a couple of them I did on Kickstarter, like Call Girl. We raised money on Kickstarter to finance, because we brought our lead actors from other countries in, which was actually very ambitious for a short film.
Damn.
And then the Stylist, we raised money on Kickstarter too. And then the ones between, thanks to the other shorts doing well and traveling around with them, I met people who were interested in financing them, or it would be impossible, because I've on average spent $1,000 a minute on short films. So they're still expensive. And that's paying, and that's like the bare minimum to pay people like not well. And I don't like doing that. That's why it's so discouraging to do it again.
Oh man.
You have to ask everyone it's like we all want to do it. It's a weird thing, because we're all desperate to just create, so we will.
Yeah.
That's how I am.
No,
that's I think the beauty of it, though, is that it's a passion thing. It's not.
Yeah.
Well, and it
I'm
seems
a little, sorry.
It seems a little more like it can be a singular vision because you don't have corporations being involved in like driving any of the creative decisions. So it can be purer than it would be otherwise.
Oh, absolutely.
Well, I feel like that kind of transitions into the Stylist, because I remember seeing your short and I loved it so much, and it felt very. I mean, I think that was obviously like a direct connection because you are a stylist, and then the short film directly relates to that. But like, I remember seeing that, and I remember thinking about some of the films and directors and things that you had talked about that inspired you to do this kind of work. And so I kind of feel like you were saying, I feel like the singular vision and the passion for something like that, when you expanded the Stylist short into like a full feature, like it was, there aren't too often, I feel like, when a short can actually take that core concept and expand it to an hour and a half idea. What was that kind of like, taking that and making sure that you could like make that a full feature? Because it was something that was so like, kind of, it seemed like a very personal project for you.
Yeah, I think, well, for me, and there's people that disagree, don't think it works as a feature, I'm sure. But I think it's because from the beginning, I thought it would be a feature. It wasn't something we tried to do later because it did well. Like, it wasn't something we forced out of it, like I think happens if something does well and they're like, how could we turn this into something longer? Versus it being kind of the thought from the beginning. But it's also a matter of, I just saw like with the short, we just got to see a glimpse of like her killer routine. And then the feature could go any direction because it would just be about getting to know her more. So I thought, like, there's no way there's not a story in there, because I love character pieces. It wasn't really about a story. It was about a character on their downfall, to say the least, to put it lightly. So yeah, I think I always knew the feature would just be like getting to know her more, but it was hard to figure out exactly what that was and what we were going to show. Were we going to go into her past? There's like a million versions we wrote. Me and Eric Havens and Eric Stolz, I apparently only work with the Erics on this project. It was just a weird coincidence. But they both put a lot into the Stylist as well. It was not just me as far as the writing.
Yeah. Did you have so much fun with the hair on that?
Yeah, well, I guess it's really stressful. I didn't do the hair. That actually, Courtney Jones is our hair and makeup artist, and no one talks about hair and makeup artists. They should get so much more credit, especially on a project like that.
It was amazing.
Claire was in like every single scene, every shot, pretty much. And in one day we would shoot from, a scene from the beginning and the middle and the end of the movie, and she'd have to completely change Najara's look every couple hours. And that also really goes into account when you're making the schedule for everything. It's like, how does the person look? Are they looking, like worse or more battered or bloodier through? You don't shoot in reverse. Also, you have to think of the emotional arc the actor's going through for the schedule. But as far as hair, we also had to. It's stressful for casting anyone who's being scalped, because I have to know that their hair, I can find a wig. So I can't just cast the best person. It has to be the best person that also has hair, that I can find a wig that looks like it.
Wow.
But you got to,
because we don't have like $1 million to make wigs or anything. So it's like, I needed a solid hair color. It's really hard. That part's hard for me, because I'm like, I hate, even wigs in giant blockbusters look bad to me. So I'm like, it's clearly not, it's really hard to make it look good.
Yeah.
Wow.
I never really
stuff you don't think
that.
about. Yeah, stuff you don't think about at all.
It's interesting, because like I would imagine like any director, it's like, well, we can shoot here and we'll make it work, or we can shoot here. But when it comes to things like that, like you were saying, it's a little more specific. I don't like it. Doesn't work. It doesn't work exactly the same way. You can't be as adaptive.
That's why I decided to play the victim later in the movie.
So cool.
My hair was all black. Right now it's not, at the time. And I was like, well, I'll be a really easy wig to match, and it'd be cool to be in it. And then we don't have to cast someone and pay them. You don't have to pay me.
I love that you killed yourself in a movie.
It was like fun and just a producer decision, and it made sense.
It's a very Roger Corman kind of decision there. Just like,
Yeah.
save money where you can and make it as efficiently as possible.
Oh, but Bria's, if you guys haven't seen this movie, is old, so we're spoiling everything. The ending, the wedding scene with the hair and the veil, that one was more, I was more concerned with that one because I'm like, this is like the end of the movie. This needs to look like we spend more money on this wig. And Bria's hair has more dimension to it, and it's kind of grown out highlights. And as a hairstylist, I'm like, maybe another director wouldn't pay attention to these details. But like when Bria got in town, I like re-highlighted and toned her hair, and then I highlighted the wig. Like I highlighted the wig.
Love that.
To make it match more.
Wow.
And I wish I had it behind me. Right, I still have it on a mannequin head in another room in my house.
Oh,
a couple of the wig, mine too, I think, is on the head still.
That is awesome. Yeah, I was, I guess, kind of going back to, and I guess by this point, if you're listening, and we're going to spoil this movie, so hopefully you've seen it.
Stylist. Wait,
yes,
I just learned to hit Peacock. See, no one tells the filmmakers anything. I found out from a random person on Instagram.
Oh wow!
But yeah, it's on
The
Peacock.
Stylist is on Peacock now.
Yeah.
Nice.
wow.
Oh, congratulations! That's amazing.
Thank you.
That's awesome.
That's incredible.
Like, millions of more people need to see that movie.
Yeah, and they should stop listening to this right now and go watch it.
Yeah, just go watch it and then
and then come back. Then come back. Yeah. Absolutely.
It's so good. It's so good.
Yeah, I wanted to, oh, go ahead, Mike.
No, I'm gushing. Sorry. I just think it's an amazing movie, and Najara Townsend is unbelievable in it.
Hell yeah.
Everybody's great in it. And the cinematography is out of this world in that movie.
Everything about it. After we watched it, I just went and told everybody that I could tell that I didn't think would be too traumatized by it to go and find this movie. That's the struggle we have a lot, Jill, is that the stuff that we typically talk about on the podcast, so many of the movies are things that we absolutely love and think are incredible, but you get to it's a balancing act of who do I recommend this to? Because like some people can't handle it.
Right.
No.
And
they just won't get it either.
Right, exactly. They can't see past the horror to see the beauty of the rest of the film. And it's a beautiful movie. It's a beautiful movie about her mind. I mean, it's just watching her slowly go away is incredible.
Mm-hmm.
All right, I'm not going to gush through the whole thing. So
I really, and I wanted to talk a little bit about like her character, a little bit in particular, partly because I feel like I know when we all talked about it and reviewed it, one of my favorite aspects of that movie, and it seems like there was like a lot of care put into the scene in particular where she has like her like in the basement, I guess, where she has like her vanity set up and she has all the wigs and everything, and like it's lit with the candles, like it's very like
it's an altar.
Yeah, it's like an altar, and it feels. I know you're a big fan of Texas Chainsaw Massacre, and when I saw that, I immediately thought of Texas Chainsaw Massacre, but like in this like alternate universe of Texas Chainsaw Massacre of like, you know, like Leatherface, and I think you've mentioned this before in the past, like as an iconic character, he's like, oh, it's this monster of a character, right? But like in the original Texas Chainsaw Massacre, like Leatherface is sort of, I guess if you've seen it as many times as like real hardcore fans have, like he's more of a troubled person than he is like a monster. Like he's dealing with the fact that people have been breaking into his house and he's freaking out and he's supposed to be taking care of the family. And so he's going through like very like a struggle mentally. And I feel like the way you set up the Stylist and that altar scene and everything, it almost feels in a very similar way. Like, can you kind of, I guess maybe speak to the setup for that particular scene, or that, you know, the importance of that altar and sort of that, you know, character building that you were talking about earlier?
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, she was very inspired by Leatherface. I've talked about that a lot. She's like, we've said since the beginning, like an elegant Leatherface.
Oh, I like that.
Oh, nice.
The whole film, me and especially Robert Stern, the cinematographer, we like kept stressing the word elegant. We're making like a really elegant and like romantic horror movie.
She's like a kid skin Leatherface.
And your color palette was amazing.
That the basement locate like scene, or I don't know if we should just call it a locate. It's because it's
Location,
used
yeah.
multiple times.
Yeah.
Is my probably favorite design. Which then production designer Sarah Sharp, she worked on the short too, so she built a very similar room in the short, and I loved it so much. So I was like, how could this really make it that much better in the future? And I was just like, blown away by what she did, and even incorporated like among the candles some like blue lights, which was inspired by Romeo and Juliet, the funeral scene in Baz Luhrmann's with Leo DiCaprio and Claire Danes is all like candles and the blue neons, like that mix of old and modern.
Mm-hmm.
There's even like a little blue neon hiding in the back, which we barely see. I wish we saw more. But I love that in the feature she made it, Sarah, a circle around Claire of candles and artifacts and family stuff and scalps. It's like she described it, which I didn't realize this till later, that she was thinking of it as like a nest for her. Like this is like her safe place. And so it's like beautiful and creepy with the chainsaw vibes, but also her version of that. And there is like, a deleted scene in Chainsaw where he's in the mirror putting his makeup on his mask, which is, I'm sad that's not in the movie because it's a lot like those moments with her. And then we really loved how we created like this thing in the film where there's these like 3 huge scenes in that basement, and they all could, like, the basement is like a metaphor for Claire also. Like, in the beginning she does her thing and it's fine. In the middle she like destroys it, and then she tries to put it back together in like a funeral for it. So it has a very like thematic thing going on in the visuals in there. But yeah, I love that room. Love when she destroys it and has like this stare off with a mannequin at the end. We put so much time into like the look and all of the themes and the details of that movie. We had the benefit of working on with the same people from the short to the feature. It was like 4 years between. So like, I know even Rob, cinematographer, was collecting lights, like these vintage lights for that altar. There's like even a legit altar behind the mirror with lights on it. And Sarah was collecting, props and set design. So it was like a lot of passion went into this beyond me for like a long time. And Najara reading every script and really building like her history with me. And so it was very collaborative.
Nice.
That's awesome.
I always feel like
I can just go on a rant and then I don't even remember where the question started. So I'm sorry.
That was perfect.
No, that's great.
Talking
Love
about.
it.
was there an intention? I think for me with Leatherface, always there's a childlike. I guess he's like the youngest kid, so he's the little brother, and he's like sort of he's like a big kid. So like sometimes he has this sort of like the tantrums almost like a little boy.
They're emotionally stunted. For
Yeah,
sure.
and I feel like Claire is that sort of like, maybe not emotionally stunted, but sheltered in a way. Like so much of the stuff that she sees happening around her that she sort of wants to be a part of, like all the people getting married and all this stuff, it seems unattainable to her because in a way she's still kind of a little girl inside. That's kind of the vibe I get from it, but it may be just something I'm reading into it, but I don't know.
I like it.
I love that movie so much.
There's aspects of like the sort of Instagram life too, where it's you create a life that you present publicly, but it's not at all connected to what's actually going on. So that's what I liked, was this facade, the creation of this public facing persona that was completely not that, but it was what she wanted. So all these friends, these different, and by putting on the hair, she would become these different personas, and she could be the person that she couldn't be through that sort of act. And I just thought it was all like, to me it seemed like you must have studied like books on psychology or like the id and the ego to like get this stuff right, because it sort of subconsciously seems so accurate.
I get scared honestly when people start asking me about the specifics of her like mental state, and I'm like, I didn't set out to have her to know what conditions she might have or what the right words. I'm like, because it's a lot of me and the other writers putting our own problems into this, so it has revealed so much.
It was so
myself.
great.
aside
great.
from the killing, it inspires me very much.
Well, I think
And
that's
a
what
couple other
actually,
things, aside from a few other things.
I feel like that's what makes it like very relatable for a lot of us. Not obviously taking the killing part
Murder
out.
aside.
Yeah, the murder side. Like I feel like for some of us that were like tend to be horror fiends or people that grew up like into Fangoria or things like that, and we were sort of the socially awkward outward. And so for me, another scene that I really like in the movie is where she's on the parking garage top and she's trying to talk with Bree's character, and it comes off. It's very like, I guess you could say cringy, but in the best way, right? Like I feel like a lot of us who are socially awkward have had those moments where we're trying to connect, but then you realize like, well, you actually don't realize it. It's not connecting, but you're still trying and you want to have that connection. What was it like directing like that scene in particular? Like, cause that seemed like you had a lot of like, there was a lot of really good constraint. I feel like, cause that you could have edited that down really short, but it's almost like you let it breathe and it made it more like, oh God, I hope this ends soon because this is hard to watch. Yeah. But it's happening and we've all kind of felt it. What was it like directing that sequence?
It was very scary. It was actually the first scene we shot with Najara and Bria together.
Oh wow!
Wow!
And they knew each other, but we didn't have any rehearsal time, and I've never been a rehearsal person. Maybe I should start, but it was fine with this, but they live in different countries before we were shooting it. And I was like, I can't believe we're shooting this. This is like a climactic moment emotionally in the movie. And so it's heartbreaking for me to watch it because Claire is so desperate in that moment and completely no idea where the boundaries are. And I wanted Bria's character Olivia to be, I didn't want her to be mean. It feels mean because we are sympathizing with Claire, but I wanted her to just like, relay strong boundaries. Like, you're going way too far. I already told you I'm fine. But the whole film we were trying to like, even when how we shot it with the music, everything being connected to Claire, like the camera's Claire, the music is Claire. So like to almost make the viewer become disillusioned with her and think like Olivia is being mean here. No, I feel Olivia is being pretty normal with how weird this situation has gotten. But I wanted people to become so far on Claire's side through this movie that they would become like not really seeing things clearly anymore, more in her eyes. But it was just a lot of talking to them like that, and not ever talking to Bria about how Claire feels and keeping that separate. Also, Bria wanted to, once she of course read the whole script, but once she got to town, she was like, I'm not reading any more of the Claire stuff. Like, I don't know that she's watching me. I don't know that any of this stuff is going on. Okay. Like her character has no idea. So she tried to avoid a lot of that. In fact, I feel like that scene is the big confrontation. Yeah. And so I don't know how I directed it, honestly. It was just a lot of talking about how they both feel. And yeah. But I want to brag. We shot that on that. It was written just in a parking lot. It could be anywhere, but we were trying to show off. I would want to make every shot look cool if it's possible. So we're like, where can we put this? And we're like, put it on the top of a garage. And the city, it was when the Chiefs were in the playoffs 2020 before our first Super Bowl. And so the whole city, like all the red lights in the back are for the Chiefs. Like this city changes the colors all the time.
That's awesome.
There was one color we had to change, but the rest of it's real. Like there's an AT&T sign we turned red. Oh God, they're going to come after me now. But little stuff like that I was excited about, showing off the city in general and the fact that you guys know, or I know Eli knows I'm a Chiefs fan. It was really exciting to be shooting during the playoffs, and it affected the shoot a lot, actually, in a scary and exciting way.
So you changed the color of the sign in post?
Yeah.
Okay.
I've seen a little bit of Chiefs stuff on X when I was following you on X. So yeah, I think you and I can't speak for Eli or Jaime, but I know that you are probably for sure the biggest jock of the flickers from the cave crowd anyway.
I'm sure, and it's more of just being a Kansas City freak than it being much of a jock.
Yeah, but
that.
hometown pride is a huge thing.
That's amazing. You got
Look,
to film in your
live
hometown.
we have the Carolina Panthers, so we got nothing to be proud of.
Well, college basketball, Mike, we got that.
We do have some college ball.
Not that I care about it, but it is a local thing. How much post did you end up doing in the Stylist? Because it looks like everything's in camera. I mean, everything there was no sign to me that anything in that was done sort of after the fact. It's just so beautifully physical and yeah, it's great. So was there a lot of post work?
Like you mean VFX specifically?
Yeah.
I mean, the post is huge. No matter
Right,
what.
right. I don't mean like color grading and stuff, but
we did add a few things. Well, there's we colored that. There's moon we added to that same shot.
Oh, cool.
Another shot we added the moon to. And then there's when she's walking after the bachelorette party and she stalks one of the girls home, there's like a girls neon flashing in the background. That's completely fake.
Oh,
nice.
wow.
Oh, wow.
Really cool.
I cannot wait to watch this again.
I got to go back and rewatch it now.
My friend Dan Del Purgatorio, he's also a writer-director. He was a big inspiration to me in the beginning. And he does VFX, and he did that, which is a crazy amount of work.
Yeah.
Just even in the background, this fake neon, which I'm a sex worker ally, love strippers, strip clubs. So I was like, I want a strip club sign in the background. Of this shot.
Awesome.
Somewhere it needs to be in the movie. And then he also there's even some fake blood dripping down her face at the very end shot.
Wow.
So she has there's the scalp on her head and there's fake blood, real fake blood, practical fake blood. And what I was worried about, we could have rigged a tube and had it drip down her face, but I also didn't want it to be silly dripping. But I was worried once you have blood drip down someone's face, it stains them, and then to reshoot it, you would have to clean their whole face off, put their beauty makeup back on, it would take a crazy amount of time, and it would distract from that moment is so the performance I thought was the priority. It's this emotional moment with Claire staring right into the camera. It's that's more important than us. She's going to be, and Najara felt a lot of pressure that day. She's told me, and it's it would be just 1,000 times more pressure worrying about this thing dripping at the right moment, and then we got the perfect performance, but this stupid thing just sprayed across the room or something. So I was really scared about adding any CG because I'm blood looks horrible, but it's so minor. There's just these couple drips incredibly slowly going down. But that's what Dan is great. Everyone
That's amazing. It's very impressive. I was certain all of that stuff was physical. I had no idea, or practical, I should say.
It's amazing.
And there's all kinds of random weird things that they do that are magical, like shots where we have scenes edit into the next one, that takes VFX of putting them on top of each other.
Right.
John, our editor, can do a lot of that stuff, so he did lots of that.
Were you in the editing bay while he was putting it together?
I was not. I'm used to editing long distance with editors. So it was just sending stuff back and forth, making notes, having Zooms about all the notes with our DP and discussing them all. And yeah.
Yeah, I said it earlier, and I'd like to just reiterate the cinematography, the DP for that. Wow, that was just next level.
Yeah.
I don't see giant Hollywood films that look as good as that, and I know you didn't have giant Hollywood budget. It's just a phenomenal accomplishment.
Thank you.
Yeah, I wanted to I guess switch us over to talking about the Ghost game, since that's your most recent thing, and obviously it's available. It's streaming VOD, but is it on a platform specific? I don't know if that was, or is it just anywhere streaming is available?
Yeah, anywhere you can buy or rent, digitally right now. We're not on any subscription services yet. So yeah, first you got to push that. Please buy and rent it first before we go up on a $5 a month place. Or actually, I think the goal might be to put on one of the free ones in early 2025.
Cool. I watched it on Prime. I don't know where everybody else.
Yeah, me too. I got it on Prime.
And the Blu-ray will come out December 10th, which people can pre-order on Dreads and Epic's website, which is our distributor.
Cool. Yeah. Pro physical media here. So yeah, I will definitely pick up a copy.
Absolutely.
Having just mentioned cinematography, if we're going to move into Ghost Game, I would again like to praise the cinematography in that. I do have a specific technical question. There is so much particulate of some sort to show those light beams and rays. I was just as I was watching it, I was just trying to imagine: is that smoke? Is it like canned atmosphere? How did you get that look? It's just so amazing looking.
We use an obscene amount of haze.
Nice.
And they, like I don't know the tech. What's the fog and haze difference, but they're different in some way. But I've worked with Rob on Stylist, the cinematographer. He always had the canned atmosphere too. So like if it's not enough right now, we just spray it real quick.
Right.
But we pretty much, even the Stylist, you haze almost every freaking room. Not to the extent that it looks like we're walking through a fog.
Right.
But like it just adds so much texture to almost anything. But with Ghost Game, it made sense. I love the light. One of my favorite shots is when she first walks into the basement in Ghost Game and there's just all these lights cutting through.
Yes. Like a specific, like really bright blue light coming in from the right and down. And like, it was just like some of those images were just, I wanted to just like freeze a frame and just really look at it. And I was going, I don't know if I could, were they able to breathe on the set? I'm sure that stuff's not hard to breathe, but it really felt like everything felt thick. It felt like an H.P. Lovecraft thing. It was just really impressive.
I have to brag then on Justin Brooks, was the cinematographer on Ghost Game, and Nate Airy, who was our lead our gaffer, who did the lighting.
Yeah, the lighting was so strong.
Yeah, it was really great.
Yeah, big props to those guys.
Every room was so unique.
Yeah, it had a lot of texture and like atmosphere. In terms of the story, without giving any spoilers, so that people can watch this. I guess this almost feels like it's hard. It's a little hard to describe, but it feels like it's like a story of people that have like a secret, almost like a Fight Club sort of kind of vibe, sort of going.
Oh yeah,
of their
I thought
own
about Fight Club.
Yeah. And so that's kind of like, I guess, like the main premise of the movie. And then you've tied in some other things that I kind of don't want to give away too much, because I feel like as those things unfolded in the movie, I was like, oh, that's interesting. I wouldn't have, that adds like another layer to what could be here. But, how did you come across this project, or how did this like morph into something that you wanted to be a part of and like help direct? I'm just kind of curious from your experiences on like the Stylist and your other work, like what you felt you could sort of bring to the project and why you picked Ghost Game.
Yeah. I wish I could say I had all these options and I picked Ghost Game. That's not how it is. But
yeah.
So I had connected with Adam Caesar, the writer of Ghost Game, a few years prior through a script that him and Jamie Nash wrote. And Jamie is also a producer on Ghost Game. He wrote like Lovely Molly and Exists, and it altered most of Ed Sanchez's films outside of Blair Witch.
We loved Exists.
Yeah.
Great movie.
Lovely Molly, if you haven't seen it, that's one of my
awesome.
favorites.
I'm writing that down.
But so I met Jamie, and so I already knew Ed, director of Blair Witch, from. This is like a matter of connections of 10 years leading up to something.
Sure.
And so, yeah, we had the script that we were trying to get made that Adam and Jamie wrote, and that was like something that needed a studio gigantic budget. I was like, I don't know if I'm going to find this much money. And then a couple years went on, and then Adam hit me up one day, and he's like, we've got this script that's set up already with this slate of movies, and they're all financed and they're going to get made. And I'm like, what? You never believe any of that's actually true. Then months and months later, I get an email from Ed with the script, and he's like, we're looking for a director, and we're trying to shoot this in like 2 months, and let me know what you think. And he tells me the budget, because it's very small, and he wants to be upfront with me, which I appreciate. But I read it, and I was like, I was so excited by it. I loved that it was like this layered thing that, like you're saying, it just keeps kind of unfolding new things about it, yet still leaves you with plenty of things unanswered. Like, I don't like a film that answers questions for you in a nice little bow. But yeah, I just love so much about it. And it was like all these genres I haven't worked in. It kind of has like little drops of lots of things, found footage, home invasion, a haunted house. Um, and yeah, I love it. I loved everyone involved in it. So I was just so excited. And it was something that I didn't have to figure out how to finance for the first time.
Wow.
So yeah, it was a really crazy like whirlwind. Like suddenly I read it and then we were making it. I was like, is this happening really? This can't be true.
The exterior of the house is amazing. Are the interiors inside that house, or were they shot somewhere else?
Yes, it's all that house. That house was so cool.
It was so cool.
I couldn't believe they found this thing. It's like a ancient mansion that a governor lived in like the 1600s or something in Maryland. We shot it in Hagerstown, Maryland.
Wow.
And no one has lived in it for quite a while, but it's so old and so creepy. It was the perfect thing because when we, like, you know, this in the script, it was written to be this epic mansion, and I thought we'd be lucky to find just something creepy in the you know, in the middle of nowhere, away from the cities. Just it didn't even need to be a mansion. And then they show me this, and I'm like, what? This is freaking unreal.
Yeah.
But then a lot of challenges come with something that big.
Yeah, I was going to ask.
Like I was like, can we afford to light it? You know, something like that. Do we have enough gear to shoot this thing? Which, yeah, was lots of meetings to discuss. Can we do that?
How much of the like set dressing, the cobwebs and things were there already, and how much did you guys have to bring in?
It was completely empty. So
okay.
Wow.
The spider webs are all I don't know if you've seen people who do it with like the hot glue gun, which is just crazy. We'd be like in a new room, like, we need this corner spider webbed immediately. I feel bad for the cleaning up of all that, actually. What the hell?
Yeah.
It was a lot of work as far as like, set deck, but then it was kind of helpful, but because they're moving in. I'm talking about all this and I haven't even really set up the movie. I feel like I need to. But this family is about to move into this mansion. And so it kind of helped that it was empty because it needed to be empty at first. But then it was a lot. We're like, we got to shoot this in the States. This house is in. But yeah.
Since you had that much space and it was very spooky, did you and the crew ever have fun just like scaring each other in different ways?
I don't know if anyone did like intentional scares, but that place was so cool. And we definitely all accidentally scared ourselves, or like Kia Dorsey, our lead actress, she is actually not into scary things. She was terror. She doesn't watch horror movies normally.
Wow. Oh, hell.
She was scared of the house at first. But that just worked great. And now I took her to all these festivals with the movie this summer, and I was like, you can do it. And she watched movies and she's like, maybe I really can watch horror movies.
I love that.
But like we saged the house when she first came in.
Oh, wow.
And, but the house is gigantic. We didn't even shoot in half the rooms.
Wow.
And this won't spoil it because no one will know who, but there's a dead body in the movie at some point, which had to be made. And it was in the room that like the scene that it would be shot in way before it was the same day, but hours before we were shooting in there. And people kept walking in because the lights were on and scaring themselves because they're like, who the fuck is sitting over there? Oh, it's just a dead body.
It looked great.
It really did.
Amazing.
It was awesome.
Yeah.
A sort of central part of the plot are bathtubs. Were those bathtubs there, or did you have to bring those in?
They were, and I wish we could bring on all the people from the crew to laugh about our discussions about bathtubs and bathrooms, which that's what the stylist was. There's so many bathrooms in the stylist. At one point I actually like counted them and I was like, how could I remove a couple of these bathroom scenes? But it wasn't something we could change. I mean, it's like the part of the ghost story of the house. It's like the motif in the whole damn thing.
And it comes back later. Like it's a continuous element in the story.
There was only 2 in the actual house, but 2 of those cool clawfoot ones. But we got to shoot this fun true crime-esque episode within the movie that tells the ghost story, which was a lot of fun to shoot that. And actually our production designer, Jen, put in different walls behind the bathtub for each
Awesome.
Brilliant.
scene.
That's
So
great.
what happens to make it look different.
That's
but it's
awesome.
a small detail. I
Yeah.
wonder if anyone notices it.
That's great.
That's awesome. No, I didn't notice it, but it's that makes sense. That's a good solution.
I did like your true crime. That's Rebecca McKendry, right?
Yes.
Who was the narrator in that sequence?
Yeah, it was awesome to have. At first, it's funny. She agreed to it at first when we only thought it was going to be a voiceover through it, and then once, which I don't know why I thought it was going to work with only a voiceover ever, because once I started to visualize editing that scene together, I was like, this isn't going to work without something to break up the reenactment, which was really fun to kind of do our own version of a fake Dateline reenactment. I was really excited to do that, and then every time I see it with a crowd, I'm like, oh, but the reenactment's like super fucking morbid. I like forget how fucked up what the people are doing is, and I just think like it's fun. We got to shoot a reenactment. But then I was like, Rebecca, I realized we need a host. Actually, would you be willing to be in the scene? And that was actually shot in L.A. I wasn't there for it, and I love the way they like, which we talked about, but like it just looks real cheesy. Like the set she's on looks real cheap. And just the way she's performing it is hilarious.
Yeah, it's really great.
It fits, even though, like you're saying, it's like it's got that level of cheese, but it fits in the movie really well because everything else is like kind of tense, and then there's like a sort of like a reprieve of like, oh, this is kind of funny, and then you're like, oh wait, no, like what they're talking about is pretty dark. So.
Well, I love that way of framing
Trigger
what's
warning,
essentially exposition.
Yeah. Yep.
I can't believe I did that. It's like, oh, we killed a lot of people in this movie. I don't realize that consciously till we're like editing it. Like, oh, wow.
If it serves the story, it's important.
And not just adults.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Pretty heavy.
There were some fantastic masks with great personalities. Like how much fun was it to go through and decide and figure out what masks?
Yeah. In fact, I wish I had them hanging up behind me, but I just brought them to a screening. They were designed by our costume designer, Kathleen McAteer, and her assistant Tanner, he's an amazing costume designer, but he also is like a big cosplay person who, cosplay people should all be in the film industry because like that's what you're making. You're incredibly making costumes and props like that. You could make money off of it. But he builds like masks, redoes famous masks and stuff. So we were like, she was like, we should bring this guy Tanner in to help with the masks. And but one thing that was helpful was they were described in the script, and like Laura's was described to be a devil mask. And then the kind of a luchador clown combination was actually described that way. And then we have a scarecrow mask, which was licensed from an artist on Etsy. That's one we didn't make, but it was really cool to get it from someone who'd like handmade it. But the devil one is
of the scarecrow look made me immediately.
Yes.
I thought about Cronenberg and Nightbreed.
nice.
With the
Ooh.
button eye mask that he
Mhm. I
puts
see
on when
that.
he's murdering people. It just had that. I don't know. There was something about it that made me think of Nightbreed.
People love like a burlap sack mask. Something about it is scary as hell.
Yeah.
I thought the luchador one was a lot of fun since it was described that way, and then Tanner had this like we ordered one, and then he removed the fabric from specific sections and then turned like the mouth into a smile with the actual pieces from the mask, and then the devil one is kind of like the classic plastic vintage look, but it was their idea to paint it like in our color palette that kind of connected to the Ghost Gamers, which green was a main color in the film, and I love how hers glows like that neon green in the dark. It's one of my favorite looks of the movie. But it was hard. I knew they were in the movie, of course, but then once we actually sat down to discuss what are we going to do about the masks, I'm like, oh my God, this is a huge thing. Like if the masks don't look cool, then the whole movie doesn't look cool. Like this is a lot of pressure situation.
So well done.
Like we don't have money to make crazy masks from scratch. What were we thinking? I just have a panic at every meeting, basically.
Is there anything in terms of I guess for the last little bit on the Ghost game, in terms of things that you were inspired, or I know you it sounds like you do a lot of like research. I've noticed like you post a lot of stuff on Instagram where you'll ask people like, hey, can anybody think of shots that are like kind of like this, or that are more this tone or that? And when I see you post those things, I can tell that you're obviously researching what you're trying to visualize for what you're going to be working on. What kind of sort of things did you reference for Ghost Game, or what kind of inspired you to get that look that you were, or I guess like your vision of what you were kind of shooting for?
Yeah, at first I don't know where I start when I do these things, but with this I kind of just first I kind of also make a list of movies that remind me of it, in whether it's like literally just a similar type or something very specific about it would remind me of it. But I don't know, I guess I was so drawn to something like this green and griminess with the movie. I'm always thinking about colors first, because I felt like there's these ghost gamers who they break into people's homes and they think it's a harmless game, and it's a really fucked up thing they're doing. We needed like to design their world to represent that as just kind of a dingy, grimy, gross thing. And then I wanted the storyline with the family moving into the house to have its own look, and then them to like meld together throughout the film. But then I was thinking of haunted films, and more recent stuff that I like is a lot of like Indonesian and Korean supernatural films. There's been a lot of really good ones from there in recent years, like Satan's Slaves, Queen of Black Magic, and Pedagore. I think Joko Anwar might be connected to half of these or all of them. And then, those films are freaking gorgeous and have also like this really green, just, I don't even know, sickly feeling to them. And I was like to bring a lot of that. So I had a list that was like a lot of Indonesian and Korean haunted films, and then kind of some other things that reminded me of like Green Room was in there as far as like the look of it. Don't Breathe, I always felt like it was the most similar film because it's a different tone, but it's also about people home invading, and like the bad people, the invaders are our protagonists. And even A Panic Room, I pulled up like anything that has like cameras, and just I like to see what other people have done with same ideas or themes.
I thought of Deadstream, which came out recently.
Yeah,
It had
it's interesting. I didn't think of pulling up all the influencer horror, which after it came out, people were calling it that. I'm like, it is that. Why didn't I ever think of it as that? But I think it was probably good that I didn't, because then I didn't lean too much into it. But yeah, this one, like with the Stylist, I have crazy references and like specific shots I stole from so many old filmmakers. And this one, I didn't even honestly have the time to do that deep of reference type stuff, because it was like hired to make it, shooting it 2 months later.
Wow.
So
Crazy.
But yeah, I always put together like a big lookbook. Like there's probably a 40-some page lookbook I gave to like everyone, all the creative visual people involved in the movie, of like how I want the scenes to look, how I imagine the characters to kind of look. But yeah, so that was a very blue and green, dark thing. So I feel like Nate and Justin nailed the look I was hoping for.
Are you a storyboarder?
Yeah, I cannot draw, so they're not like detailed or pretty.
Right.
And I don't like to storyboard hurts me sometimes until I can see the location, because it's so specific. If you just draw like them completely from my mind, it kind of seems pointless to me. Like I'm so specific. If once I see the room, then you can see like how are they going to walk out of it, or you can't understand it till you know where it's going to be.
That makes sense.
So this one I was kind of like down to the wire. In fact, like we shot weeks, so we'd actually have the weekends off, and I would spend like Sunday and Monday like making sure I would like reshot listed or storyboarded. Sometimes I don't storyboard every single shot because like I know it enough that I can just write it down as a shot list. But I do, yeah, like to completely visualize every detail of how it's going to cut together. It's not just like get a wide, medium, close. It's like very detailed.
I was checking my notes, and I did have one more thing I wanted to kind of praise about Ghost Game. The music was exceptional. Was this someone you had worked with before?
It's not. Thank you. His name is Rafal Gominski. I pray I'm saying this correctly. It was my first time working with him. He has worked with my producers on this on quite a few projects, and he's in a completely different continent.
Wow!
But it was really exciting to work with him and work with someone. I've worked with the same composer on like every short up till the Stylist, and so it was scary before it started, but exciting to work with someone new. And he would just so how fast he was. I was like, what? You already have this whole part of this movie done. Yeah, it was a lot of fun to work with him, and it was cool to kind of create, like, we try to create themes for certain characters, like just subtle things that would return when, like, the Adrian character, one of our ghost gamers, who's definitely the like antagonist of those three. He would kind of have his own music because he's creepy as hell. I was like, we need to give him his own thing when he's creeping around the house. But yeah,
it was great. The music really stood out to me as great.
Absolutely.
Thank you.
Yeah, it was a lot of fun. And it felt like, and it came out right around the right time too for like the Halloween season, and also gives us like something to carry over into the Thanksgiving season, because like horror tends to kind of drop off until like January, February, where things kind of pick back up again. But so yeah, we want to encourage everybody to rent this. I guess physical media. Buy it when it's going to be available. And I'll post a link for people to kind of get to you. I guess the last thing before we let you go, just kind of curious about what you're currently watching and what's kind of inspiring you, whether it's books or movies or music or anything. I was thinking about that because I just got back from Chicago last weekend, and I bought I Spit on Your Celluloid, I think it's called, and I noticed that you're in that. I haven't had a chance to really read through it, but I saw your picture in the back when I was kind of like thumbing through it in the bookstore, and I was like, this is awesome. And I had been wanting to get that book. But yeah, is there anything that is like bubbling up the creative juices, while you're between things? And we'd be curious if you have suggestions for us.
Well, and I have to brag about the I Spit on Your Celluloid, written by Heidi Honeycutt, who's one of the founders of Etheria Film Night, the all women, female made film showcase that's been going on forever. And yeah, it's the history of women directing horror movies. So it's really like a very involved history. I haven't even started reading it, but I think it would take, it's like a it's like a class. It's going to take a year of like, if you're actually paying attention to it, I think.
Yeah.
It's 464
pages.
Spend
like 20 years reading it and watch every movie as you go, and then you'll never finish it probably. But it was so amazing to be part of that book, and I got to go to a few events in LA for the launch of it in August. But so I definitely recommend that, even though I need to start reading it. I've got multiple copies here. But reading though, I've like in the last couple of years, I've always liked reading, but I've never been like an avid reader. And I think it's been an insecurity. When I was younger, I still read slow, and I always scared. I was like, maybe I shouldn't read. I can't read fast. I'm embarrassed. But the last few years I've made it like a goal to read more, and I love it. And really what I've been liking to read most lately isn't like horror, what probably people think that I would be reading, but I love like books about like going on adventures, or like Wild by Cheryl, what's her name, that turned into a film, or Into the Wild by John Krakauer, which I just read, and I read Into Thin Air, same John Krakauer. I'm going to say his last name wrong. And I'm reading his other book, Under the Banner of Heaven, right now, which is really upsetting because that's about the Mormon church and the pedophiles, and it's fucking upsetting, but it's very good. But I'm more interested in the adventure books and like just the people like books about nomadic people or just being in the wilderness. Like all of that is my favorite thing and really inspiring to me. Another writer named Richard Grant, he wrote a book called American Nomads that like um goes through like the history of all different American nomadic people from Native Americans up to, snowbirds, the older people who live in RVs and go up and down.
Wow.
Oh, wow.
And he talks about his own wanderlust and like kind of this psychoanalyzing himself. And I love that because I feel that way. I've always wanted to like live in the middle of nowhere like a animal. But he's written other books about his adventures. He goes on adventures that are terrifying. He wrote one about traveling through the Sierra Madre in Mexico, which are infamously dangerous, and he lived through it. So yeah, I'm really interested in all that kind of stuff, and that's mostly where my head is. I'm like planning all these wilderness adventures for the next year. But movie wise, I want to bring up The Shadow Strays, which is an action movie that just hit Netflix, by Timo Tjahjanto. Speaking of Indonesian filmmakers, he's one of my favorites.
Thank you. I keep telling these guys to watch The Night Comes for Us, but they won't do it.
You need to watch The Night Comes for Us immediately, okay. After The Shadow Strays.
Yes, will you finally watch, you guys? Come on, I've been telling.
We have endorsement.
It may be after I watch The Stylist again.
Yes.
To maybe convince you is Timo, the filmmaker. He's also a horror filmmaker, and so all of his action has the level of like blood and gore more than any horror movie you've ever seen. I mean, Night Comes for Us was dubbed like the most violent and bloody action movie to ever exist. Like in one scene, you'll see like 40 people get like macheted. Like it's incredible. But because he started in ABCs of Death and VHS2, he did that really fucked up L is for Libido in ABCs of Death. He got like banned from it because it was so disturbing. And in VHS2, he was that satanic occult, like the only Asian segment in there. And then he went on to make a movie called Macabre and then Killers, and then the two movies on Netflix, May the Devil Take You, Part 1 and 2. And then he's done tons of action films. And then the Killers like combines action and horror. I mean, he's one of my favorite filmmakers. He's been like a huge inspiration and mentor. Like I've gotten to know him and met him at festivals.
Oh, cool.
That's really
cool. Yeah, he's amazing. If his name's on it, I watch it like immediately. Yeah.
And now like him, he's clearly best friends with Netflix Indonesia, and just all his films are funded by them now.
That's
nice.
That's my rant about Timo. Timo, you better listen to this.
the last one I watched was the one where it's like the 4 or the 5 or something.
Yeah, the Big Four.
The Big Four. It was so entertaining and funny.
Almost more like, and he was talking about it ahead. He was like, "This is my most family-friendly film. It's the least." Because his movies are fucking violent. and Shadow Strays was even darker than. It's more adult than the other ones, I feel like.
I'm gonna have to watch that. Awesome.
Then I got these aren't out yet, but Elric Kane's feature debut, The Dead Thing, is gonna come out on Shudder in February. I've seen it at a couple of festivals, and it's
cool.
Like, really good.
Very excited for that.
I just watched My Old Ass last night. Loved it. It's on Prime, not horror. I'm like not even recommending any horror.
The Aubrey Plaza movie, right?
Yes.
Yeah,
I do adore
a coming of age I love a coming of age movie.
I loved it.
It was great.
Awesome.
And Enora, which is out in the theaters right now by Sean Baker, which won like the Palme de I can't speak French. Yeah. Like the big award at Cannes, and so that was incredible. I'm a huge Sean Baker fan.
Very cool.
Well, that's awesome. Thanks for all those recommendations. Like I really hope. I really hope we can get you back at the Texas Frightmare at some point, and maybe even over at the historic Texas Theater to show some of your stuff there. That would be awesome. But yeah, I just I don't know. I just wanted a million thanks over for taking time to chat with us. It's always fun talking to other creative people and kind of poke your brain a little bit just to know what makes things tick and It's very inspiring to me. I think it's probably inspiring to a lot of people to hear, especially, I love that you are part of the, what I like to call the Central Coast. Everybody like in the middle area, of the country. So, I guess we don't have to be, on the East Coast or West Coast to make movies all the time.
Exactly.
So. Well, cool. Thanks for the time, and
thank you so much for having me.
Yeah, for sure. And everybody have a good week, and we'll see everybody next week.